Today's story is from r/entitledparents by the user @poster_rick. The title of the story is Entitled Mother tried to take my friend's truck, stabbed him with a pocket knife, then said no. Cops took her away, kicking and screaming. The story goes as not my story, but that of a friend who authorized me to post it here when I asked him. For starters, my friend owns a blue 05 Dodge Ram 1500. It's not the most reliable model of truck, but he's kept it in damn good shape and left it looking stock, save for some alternative alloy wheels. He tells me he was willed the truck from his grandfather when he passed away 7 years ago. Caleb isn't a mechanic, but learned how to do a lot of work on this truck himself. I even helped him redo the undercoating in it and buff polish the paint. This story takes place around 3 years ago. My friend tells me this was really the one and only time he's dealt with an entitled parent. He described her as looking like a teapot, short and stout. So, from this point on, the EM will be referred to as a teapot. For the sake of giving him a name, my friend in the story will be referred to as Caleb. Rewind 3 years, and our story begins at a local supermarket whose name rhymes with Stallmart. Caleb always goes out of his way to try and get as close of a parking space to the store as possible, and on this day, he managed to do so. He went in and did the bulk of his food shopping for the next couple of weeks, and everything seemed fine. But of course, now comes the entercarent part of the story. Caleb was pushing his cart out when he saw an older woman trying to force open the rear door of the canopy of his truck. Which is odd because you could clearly see inside that he didn't really have anything of value in it other than a few tools. She didn't seem to notice him until he was super close and said to her, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" Teapot jumped back like lightning struck, but then quickly started playing the little old lady card. Though this lady was about 50 tops. She put her hand over her heart and said in an over-exaggerated way, "Oh dear, you shouldn't sneak up on people like that, young man." Caleb, "Yeah, sure. What are you doing?" Teapot, "I was just trying to get in my truck. I locked my keys inside by mistake and can't get in." Caleb, "Lady, that's not your truck." Teapot, "Yes it is. I just got it last year." Caleb, "Oh really? Then what model year is it?" Teapot, "It's a 2010. Just look at how clean and new it is." Caleb, "No lady, it's in 05. I know this because it's my truck." Caleb then produced the key and pressed the button on the fob to unlock the door. He said Teapot first went white, then red with anger. It's pretty much full stereotypical Karen after this. Teapot, "Listen here, you little shit. You don't deserve a truck this nice. It'd be a lot better for someone like my son. He's a local college student, you know, and he needs a nice shiny vehicle like this to get around in." Caleb, "Are you loopy, lady? My truck isn't for sale, and even if it was, how much would you give me for it?" Teapot started to look smug and pulled a checkbook from her purse. "I can give you $1,500 for it right now." Caleb facepalmed so hard he said he hurt his nose. "Lady, my truck is worth several times that, and I've personally kept up with its maintenance for several years. There is no way in hell I'd take $1,500 for it. Plus, There's no way I'd hand over the title unless I was paid with cash. I don't trust checks. Teapot moved to get up in his face, which was funny because he was a full foot taller than her. She was about to speak when Caleb silenced her with a loud, "Don't ever think about it, lady. My truck isn't yours for the taking. It never will be. Now leave me alone so I can unload my groceries in peace and go home." He then did his best to try and ignore Teapot as she began screaming and saying she'd call the police. Caleb then just yelled back, "Call them then." And she called. She pulled out an old flip phone and began fake crying while speaking with the person on the other end. Caleb finished loading his groceries and locked the truck because he wasn't about to drive off the police with police on their way. When the police arrived, Teapot actually flopped down into the ground and started fake crying like a baby while flailing her arms and legs around and pointing at Caleb, screaming, "He knocked me to the ground and stole my truck. And then he said he'd come back later and hurt my family. Arrest him now." The two police officers that had showed up were an older man with a mustache and a younger one that Caleb said he guessed was a rookie because the younger cop was immediately getting ready to aim his taser when the older one stopped him so they could assess the situation first. Caleb raised both hands and calmly stated that nothing Teapot said was true, and that she had been harassing him since he caught her trying to break into his truck. Teapot, while still having a tantrum on the ground, yelled, "He's lying! Arrest him!" The rookie officer spoke with Teapot, while the mustached one spoke with Caleb. Since he was so close to the store, Caleb stated that he bet that the security cameras picked up the whole thing. It was at that point that Teapot gave up on her act and started screaming like a banshee while running at Caleb with a small pocket knife she pulled from her purse. Caleb tried to back away and held his hand up, and the knife went right through his left palm. He described to me as one of the most painful things he had ever felt. She pulled the knife out and tried to stab him again when the rookie tackled her onto the ground and tased her. Teapot trailed around and started screaming and sobbing like a baby. When she finally stopped moving, the mustached officer cuffed her while the rookie called for an ambulance. Teapot was loaded into the police cruiser, kicking and screaming, "Help! Police brutality! Someone help me!" Caleb was taken to the hospital to tend to his stab wound in his hand. Turns out he was incredibly lucky as the knife had gone right through the bones and not damaged any tendons. Later in the court, Teapot actually tried to plead not guilty, but the evidence against her was overwhelming and she was charged with an attempted murder, attempted grand theft auto, and a few other things. The judge sentenced her to be put in a mental facility because she clearly was not well. As soon as that happened, Teapot flipped out and began trying to charge at the judge, but she was quickly grabbed by the guards and hauled out of the courtroom. Also during the trial, Caleb met Teapot's son. Turns out he'd gone no contact with her as soon as he was old enough to move out because she was the most controlling and overbearing mother you could imagine. And ever since then, she had been trying to show up at his apartment and bring him nice things. He suspected she had stolen just to try and get him to talk to her. Guess she figured Caleb's truck would have gotten her back in her son's good graces or something. This story is getting written now because Caleb decided to check up on the Teapot by searching her name online. She is still at the mental facility and he found out from her son through social media that she looks like she is likely staying there for quite some time to come. The next story is by the user QNSTNTN. The title of the story is The Time I Gave a Kid Reality Check. The story goes as first post here, be kind. So, a few years back, I was traveling from or to India. I could not remember, to be honest. I booked my seat in the back of the plane, knowing that families with younger kids are usually seated to the front, so I hoped to stay away from screaming kids on a long flight. I reach my seat and happily sit down next to an empty seat and an empty row behind me. Last to board was a family of three: mother, guy, the father maybe, and the kid, about 6 or 7, I guess. Of course, they are sitting right behind me. Ugh. As soon as they were seated, the kid started to kick my seat in a super monotonous rhythm. Twice the irk. A few minutes go by, and I turn around and kindly ask the kid to stop it since it is annoying. With a smug grin, it stops, just to restart faster this time. Time passes, still kicking in my lower back. I ask the kid again, this time a bit more determined. Mind you, I am 1.88 meters or 6'2" feet and about 100 kilograms to 20 pounds. Same stupid face, no reaction. So I turn to the mother and ask her to tell her kid to stop. With the most pretentious look and tone, she gave me the "We don't say no to our little prince. We think he needs to find his own limits and we will not raise him with rules." Right there. The kicking proceeds. I look at the kid, keeping in my mind that he was A. in kindergarten or elementary school and is B. the prince. Buckle up, Buckaroo. I lean to him, look him straight in the eye, and say very clearly, "There is no Santa Claus. Your mom lied to you." Oh boy, he looked at me blankly. The kicking stopped. What happened now was just he turned to his mother, hitting her, screaming full power. The mom yelled at me why I would scar her little prince like that. In the same pretentious tone, I answer, "I believe kids should find their limits themselves, and when a stranger tells your kid to effing stop the kicking against his seat, he should listen next time." Put on my headphones, take a sleeping pill, and ignore the tantrum from hell that happened behind my back.